like 20 episodes down the road, people will be like, what does he have against Lucky
Welcome
Charms?
to our Christmas episode. Like we always say, fuck you, Lucky Charms.
That just means people are going to start sending you Lucky Charms.
I don't mind. I'm Frankenberry right here.
There you go.
I think I know what I'm going to use for the opening now.
I mean, this is what happened to us where we're just like, fuck New Hampshire. And then just a million people from New Hampshire are like, we're really not that bad.
Top of the morning to y'all. Welcome to an all new episode of the Horror Bin. I'm your host, Julian Fernandez. Welcome to our very special St. Patrick's Day episode.
Yes.
And with me today, I brought a good friend of the pod. You might know her from, what is it now, 3-4 podcasts?
3, yeah. At any given time, at least 3.
Horror Virgin, Romancing the Stone, Cult Podcast. She's a killer comedian, awesome writer. It's Paige Wesley.
Yay. Hello.
Paige,
thank you.
Thank you so much. You were on, I think, our first episode?
Is that the one that ended up airing first?
It was either our first or second because we only did the audio. This is the first time we have had you on for the video.
True. Yes. I was just here for audio before.
Yeah, but welcome back.
Thank you.
I knew I wanted, this is one of those episodes, 1, fan requested, and then 2, this is our first fan requested one, but also a holiday.
Of course, you gotta do it.
You gotta set it up. And
that's like not doing a Halloween movie on Halloween. Like, you gotta do it.
Gots to do it. And this one, of course, St. Patrick's Day. We got the banger of all bangers.
Yes, the OG.
The OG, the Jennifer Aniston classic, Leprechaun from 1993. Before we get into it, real quick, let's go ahead and take a look at the trailer. Let's go ahead and take a look at the trailer. Take a look at the trailer. There we go.
Whenever it decides to
I'll
play.
get it right eventually.
In its own time.
Yeah.
The luck of the Irish.
And already the trailer is just too serious for the type of movie this is.
Too serious for a villain that is
To a
defeated by
little town
shoes.
in South Dakota, whose luck may have just run out.
That's the kind of voice work I want to do.
I think you'd be great at that.
They just don't make those trailers anymore.
I know, and it's a bummer because, like, think about if you had a Barbarian trailer like this.
Right.
How hard that would slap.
Deep in the house, a mystery to be solved.
Exactly.
My ear! He got my ear!
Oh, it's Francis from Pee-wee's Big Adventure in his weirdest role yet. Francis.
Look out, it's in the cabinets.
Toward the basement.
This goes so hard compared to what the movie is.
Right.
That's unhinged.
Not seen anything of the Leprechaun at all, except for his hand.
Just the clover. Just the clover. I think they're trying to, like, keep the monster secret.
As they should.
Shaky cam. That's not even the Leprechaun's laugh. Like that's a weird kid-style laugh, but the Leprechaun is actually slightly scarier than that sounds. Oh, no.
Leprechaun.
Leprechaun.
It's out of the crate.
Blast.
Hearts,
This
stars, horseshoes, clovers, and blue moons. Yeah. Oh. That is something.
But yeah, like we said, we're doing Leprechaun 1993. Jennifer Aniston's debut feature film.
Jennifer Aniston's debut feature film. Now, fun fact, they did film this earlier, and then they held it. They had
For like 2 years, yeah.
Yeah, for like 2 years, and then she got Friends, and then they released it.
Yeah.
I'm sure she was just like, God damn it, I had hoped that it had like burned in some studio fire. No,
No,
they
not this.
released it at like the height of her fame in a way, which is really funny.
Like the actual Leprechaun in the movie, you cannot stop him.
No, I like to think that this movie was in a crate and then somebody like brushed a clover off of it and then they were like, oh, we can release this now that she's on TV.
Yeah. It's pretty out there. For those that don't know, Leprechaun, like I said, released in 1993. The storyline: Dan O'Grady steals 100 gold coins from a leprechaun, played by Warwick Davis, who is no stranger to playing tiny creatures.
Of course.
While on vacation in Ireland, the leprechaun follows him home, but Dan locks the murderous, I'm not going to say that word, in a crate.
Oh, yes. Yeah.
It is the not good word, for little people, I'm not going to say it on this podcast, follows him home, but Dan locks the murderess in a crate, held at bay by a 4-leaf clover. 10 years later, J.D. Redding and his daughter Tori, played by Jennifer Aniston, rent O'Grady's property for the summer. When their new neighbors accidentally release the leprechaun, he goes on a murderous rampage to reclaim his gold.
Yeah, and boy, are those neighbors something.
Almost come out of nowhere, really.
It is not clearly explained in the film that they are neighbors. That's not something they have covered, really. They just show up, and it seems like they own a paint company, and they're like painting the house. But the house is in such disrepair that like there's nothing to be painted.
Yeah,
yet.
and let's be clear, company is very loosely
Very
used.
loosely.
It's like one actual employee, his younger brother, and then
a nebulous other character that seems to have some sort of intellectual disability.
they're Lenny from Mice and Men helper, played by Francis.
Played by Francis from Pee-wee's Big Adventure.
I should say his name, Mark Holton.
Mark Holton. Who
Mark Holton. Yeah.
does come back.
He does for the remake.
A more recent remake,
for
yes.
the remake that sets it up as the sequel to the first one.
Just the first one. Yeah, they pull a Halloween and they're like,
Yes.
no. Everything in between is no longer canon.
The timeline really got out of hand, guys.
We got to branch it off. And so it's like Jennifer Aniston's daughter, and Jennifer Aniston has like died off screen. Was too famous to do this.
Oh, of course.
But I do think it's really funny because they paint the oldest neighbor, the oldest of the three, as like a love interest for Jennifer Aniston, who is portrayed as a teenager. So you've already got some weirdness in this movie because she's definitely in her mid-20s playing a teenager.
Ageless. Let's also say that.
Ageless, looks the same age as she does now. And she's like trying to like put the hots on Painter guy, and he's clearly in his mid-30s.
Oh, yeah.
like when you see his little brother, you're like, that's his son, right? And they're like, brother. And you're like, who's this other guy? We don't talk about it.
He just kind of comes around. He hangs out. He's my younger brother's best friend.
Best friend.
Hold
Questionable.
on. Wait a minute. What?
Yeah, they met at a rabbit hugging contest. Like it's crazy. But then on top of like all of that,
He was obviously disqualified.
100 for excessive
killing-
force. This is like one of the best examples of some of these franchises have been going so long that we think of them as this like cult classic paragon, and everyone's like, oh, Leprechaun, he like speaks in limericks, he's doing the bong, the whole thing, and they forget that a lot of that is sequels.
Yeah.
And that this movie, he doesn't even rhyme yet in this movie. This is brand new.
It's just very limericky tone of voice.
Just a little, it's just the little voice. He has a weird aversion or attraction to shoes,
OCD,
which
definitely
goes away immediately after
not
this
a ton of
movie.
representation in movies, but
Not
we got
a ton.
it here.
He has a foot fetish. Also, it's almost like Tarantino directed it, but so all those things are like in this one that aren't in the other ones. But people also forget how wildly offensive some movies from that time are.
Yeah.
And this is one of them where you go back to watch it and you're like, Jesus Christ, was nobody in Standards and Practices at this time?
Not in the 90s, baby.
Oh,
Early 90s? No way.
Well, and they shot this probably in like 90, 91. So this might as well be an 80s movie, like as far as sensibilities are concerned. And I'm sure by the time it came out in 93 when she was on Friends, she was like, oh God, was I really in a movie where they made an intellectually disabled person eat coins? Like, I guess I was. Yeah, it's rough. It's a rough one.
It is. Directed by Mark Jones, and I believe he also wrote it as well. Yeah. On a budget of $900,000, I think now $1 million today.
Yeah.
Box office $8.6 million.
That's why there's so many.
There's a lot. Only the first and the second one have theater releases. All the rest of them are straight to video.
Yeah, pretty much, because even the most recent one was streaming. Although I think had pandemic not been in play, I think the last one probably would have gone theatrical.
Was the last one Origins, or was that the weird sequel?
I think it's the weird sequel is the last one.
Because Warwick Davis, he only played it up until
He's back in the weird sequel though. Is
No.
One of them he's not in.
one of them is a wrestler as Leprechaun.
Right.
I forget his name. I'll find out in a minute.
It's around the same time they did the thing with Freddy, where it was Jackie Earle Haley as Freddy for that one Nightmare movie.
Ugh, the bad
And then
one.
we've never gone back to it.
And that's saying a lot.
I
They were
mean-
saying that one's the bad one. And not the worst, but a bad one.
Well, it's not very fun because
No.
this is my beef with a lot of modern like movies trying to reinvigorate these old cult classic franchises. I feel the same way about Evil Dead 2013, where it was too serious. I'm like, it's an Evil Dead movie, but then Evil Dead Rises, I think, bridged the gap a little bit better.
I agree with you. Like I'm not a big fan of the let's bring this property back and then let's do whatever. Because again, the reason why it's so popular is because at the time it was an original idea. It was like this thing that they're like, let's gamble it all, let's do it, let's try it. And then somehow it found its audience and it worked. But then to try to redo it again, you're kind of missing the point. We like the original because it's the original. We don't really, not a lot of people really want an updated modern version.
Yeah.
Even if stuff has like problematic issues in it.
Sure.
It's still like, it's like when like how Disney like
we
tries
can view it
to
through the lens of time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's like, oh, well, we gotta cut this out. I was like, no, dude, like let's watch it. Like it's a learning thing too.
Don't act like you didn't do it.
Yeah, we know what you
Like,
did.
We know what you did. We knew you made Song of the South. I feel, and I guess this is the argument I get into with people sometimes, especially around Evil Dead, because they're like, well, it's a good horror movie. I was like, then it could just be a horror movie. It doesn't need to be an Evil Dead movie. It could be, we should make more new horror movies.
Yes.
Like, if you told me we were never going to get sequels to any of these ever again, but we'd get a whole bunch of new horror movies, I'm okay with that.
Same.
So like that's kind of where I'm at, is like, unless it truly carries the torch of a version of the originals that we love and bridges that gap, I'm not that excited about it.
And there's right and wrong ways to do like reimaginings or or retrying. I think like a movie like Prey.
Oh, I loved Prey. Prey was so
It's
good.
one of those movies that it has homages to the old movies,
But it stands on its own.
It's done in a way that's like, oh, they're not blatantly, they're not just throwing this line in because they have to. It's like it feels natural to have this line. If it bleeds, we can kill it.
If it bleeds, we can kill
It's
it.
the I forgot that line's in the original.
Jesse Ventura.
If it bleeds, we can kill it.
I ain't
and
got time to bleed.
If we can peel it, we can also eat it.
There you go.
That's what I discovered about the Constitution of these United States of America. You know, John F. Kennedy Jr. wants to have me as his running mate. What a ridiculous thing.
Oh my God.
Anyways, that's my one.
I just want to see the debates. Like, it's just going to be nuts.
What's my economic plan? What's our financial institution for this planet? You have to understand, money is a monopoly that does not exist. Well, it's not. It's all manifested in our minds, really.
Yeah.
Anyways,
He's a wild dude.
Let's get back. This isn't that kind of podcast.
No.
I'll do impressions all day, but I don't know enough about Jesse Ventura to keep going.
I know that for a brief point in time, Minnesota kind of liked him, but then he seems to have gone like way off the rails.
Oh yeah.
He seems to have maybe lost it a little bit.
A little. Looking at some reviews that we have here. There we go. I already immediately like the how it starts. The basic problem with Leprechaun is that it just isn't scary, not even a little bit, not for the tiniest second, and that's the result of a basic failure of the conception stage. Jason Bailey, we agree with you.
Yeah, I don't disagree with that because essentially he's saying like the problem with this is that leprechauns aren't scary, and I was like, yeah, it's spoiler.
I think
it's a leprechaun.
I think the fun concept, interesting. Yeah, but it's not scary. It's more on the comedic side.
Yes.
And even like a lot of the kills aren't even really that
they're funny.
Scary, yeah.
I feel like it's something that Child's Play does a little bit better,
Yes.
where Child's Play, I think from like day one is like, okay, it's a doll. Like we get it, kick him. Like, you know.
And it's a possessed doll.
And it's a possessed doll, and we're going to kind of play with that within the world and get a little weird with it. I think Leprechaun initially, this first one, they really kind of try to take a run at scary, but then very quickly realize that they cannot. And that's when things like the shoes come in, and you're just like, what is this? What is this movie?
And going forward in all the other sequels, they change the rules
every time.
Every time.
Every time.
It's wild. And granted, like, I mean, Leprechaun's not like a vampire or werewolf. They don't have any like standard set rules. But at the same time,
except for the gold.
Yeah, except for the gold.
But then they change gold rules every time.
Because then in one movie it's like, oh, if we catch him, he has to give us a wish.
Right.
I thought if you catch him, he has to give you your
I was
gold.
like, I think that's a genie.
Yeah.
What?
Oh, you know, I think in one point they drink him under the table.
They do drink him under the table.
It's like
in one of them.
it's like a known thing that a leprechaun can't hold his liquor.
They can't hold their liquor, but in Leprechaun Back to the Hood, they smoke him under the table, where they give him this like giant bong and he takes a hit of it and passes out, and they like use that, but then he stabs someone to death with the bong.
Yeah. They eventually get more creative with the kills because, I mean, the most creative kill that we have in this movie is him stomping a guy to death with a pogo stick.
Right, right.
Other than that, I mean, he
Don't
snaps.
hate it.
Don't hate it. But I mean, it's the only creative one. Like, other than that, we got him snapping a cop's neck. And he inadvertently kills the wife at the beginning. But
on
she
accident,
just falls down the stairs.
Yeah.
It's not even him. It's just his presence.
Yeah.
And then O'Grady kind of gets killed off screen.
Yeah, later on, you know, or whatever.
And we see him just die from his wounds, really, in the elevator. So in terms of like just kills overall, like we have like
There's
one.
not that many in general.
We have like one good one,
Right.
And one good kill, and maybe just two that are actually directly three, kind of, but like two that we see that are directly.
He gets some assists from luck, which is on brand.
Which is on brand.
You know.
Which, funny enough, Lucky Charms, because there is that scene where he's like going through the cabinets. He comes across a box, not of Lucky Charms, but of Lucky Clovers.
Yes.
Because
they refused.
Yeah, Lucky Charms, when they saw, they're like, yeah, have this in the movie. And they saw it and they're like,
no.
And then that's why they changed the line at the end, because it was supposed to be your luck ran out or something like that.
Yes.
To fuck you, Lucky Charms.
Yes. Because they could say the name, because it is like a public, like, it's a known noun, if you want to think of it that way.
Yeah.
Like, you can mention it as a brand, but you couldn't display their logo and everything.
Yeah,
so,
or Lucky or whatever his name
Lucky
is.
the Leprechaun, yeah.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
But, you know, we have Warwick Davis in this. You know, I think this is just after he did Willow, I would think.
Yeah, this is right after Willow.
Yeah.
But by then, he had done the original Star Wars.
Yeah.
He'd done Willow.
He was doing Star Wars while they were filming this.
Yes, because he's doing Return of the Jedi while they were filming this.
And there's actually on the credits, there's a special thanks to George Lucas.
They borrowed him for like 3 weeks in the middle of shooting and then sent him back. Yeah.
Warwick Davis, the original. Oh my God.
Wicket.
Well, Wicket, but damn it, what's his name? Game of Thrones.
Oh, Tyrion Lannister.
Yeah, what's his name? God damn it. I have a computer
Peter
right
Dinklage.
here. Peter Dinklage, the original Peter Dinklage.
We just did Tiptoes on Romancing the Pod.
Did you? Oh my God. What a wild,
That's a rough one.
Wild movie. Gary Oldman, what were you thinking?
Oh my, Gary Oldman, let alone the people who gave him fake couch legs. What were y'all thinking? And we noticed this when we watched it. He's clearly inside the couch, popped out, and then they've tucked the legs in like you would tuck a pillow or like a couch cover in, so it looks like he has no waist. Oh my God. He's just man popping out of couch, legs draped.
That's funny.
It's a wild choice.
It is. It is definitely a wild choice. It's definitely a wild movie to just do.
Yeah. It's weirder than this movie, and that's saying something.
That is saying a lot.
Because I'm like, I understand why a Leprechaun 1 is gold, but then Tiptoes, I'm like, I don't understand any of it.
No. And it's one of those movies, like, I didn't know about it until somebody else, I think from Tosh.0, I think they did like a whole beginning to end review of it.
That makes sense.
And just hearing it from third person is like, what the fuck? And then you start seeing clips and you're like, whoa.
Yes. Nothing I can describe to you is as weird as viewing it.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And same thing with this. It's a weird watch.
It's a weird watch.
I mean, Rotten Tomatoes score of 31%, 33% audience score.
I like that the audience score is only 2%.
Just a little more.
Just a little more. Usually with this movie, it's like Rotten Tomatoes score like 7, audience 80, because like, you know, people are like, it's weird, but I love it.
But again, I think the biggest appeal is Warwick Davis as the Leprechaun.
Yes.
It is a very funny. Whether that was their intention or not. And granted,
It should have been.
I think the inspiration was also a bit of Critters as well.
Oh, yes.
So I think there was that intention of like, well, the concept is already ridiculous.
Gremlins is also, the first Gremlins is out around this time too.
Mm-hmm.
So like you've got a precedent, and Child's Play already out.
Yeah.
You've got a precedent for small scary things.
Yes.
So like, yeah, sure.
Causing mayhem and all sorts of things.
Ghoulies. I don't know if you've seen Ghoulies.
Ghoulies. Put it on the list.
There you go. Yeah.
But I think we've talked about it enough. I mean, on the scary rating, it's a 1. This is a 1 for sure. On the movie rating,
I love me some Leprechaun.
It's like it's still even though it's not a great horror movie, it still has its own charm. Pun intended. It still has its own charm.
Multiple charms.
Clovers and balloons. It still has its own like charm to it. That's like, it's not a so bad it's good movie, but it's entertaining because it's just bad, or not bad. It's not even bad. I don't even want to call it bad because it
swings. Like that's what it takes, wild swings. And this is, I feel like, one of the first franchises like this to not just take a wild swing within the movie itself, but to also take swings within the franchise.
Yes.
That's like, hey, now we're going to do a whole divergent timeline where the Leprechaun goes to the hood. What? Why did we choose to do this? And yet, Leprechaun Back to the Hood, which is the second in the Hood timeline, one of my favorite Leprechauns. That one's great.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I've only
blast.
seen the first Leprechaun in the Hood.
He goes to space.
That one's ridiculous.
It's fucking nuts.
That one is. I mean, Jason goes to space. Jason X is more
That's
of a
the
believable
next
horror.
one we have on Horror Virgin for the next Friday the 13th,
Oh
and
my
I can't
God.
wait. I'm so excited.
It's like one of the first one of the first Friday movies that I remember watching from beginning to end.
With that head kill.
Oh, the head kill's the best kill.
It's the best.
It's the best. Right? They started off right, and then everything else is kind of like, okay.
Yeah.
It's all right. Just normal stabbings and cutting and chopping.
I feel like that's what Leprechaun goes on to do.
Yes.
Is that it's just like, how weird can we get? And it's perfect for that.
And how crazy can we make these kills?
Yeah.
And it's wild. Apparently, he's makeup took about like 3 to 4 hours.
Oh, yeah.
And then 45 minutes to remove. But 3 to 4 hours, and just mostly your face too.
Yeah, because everything else, he's wearing like gloves and
it's just a costume.
Yeah, it's just a costume.
Yeah. With where for you, because I'm assuming even before we talked about doing this, you've seen it before. Do you remember the first time watching
Many
it?
times. I think the first time I actually sat and watched it all the way through was probably like 8 years ago.
Okay.
I was in San Diego for like a comedy thing, and my friend and I were stuck in the hotel. It was like a corporate gig. There was like nothing else to do, and it was a marathon. And I want to be clear. I think it was on Sci-Fi.
That's where I saw it
but
first.
Want to be clear, not during March. Like it was October.
Yeah, Sci-Fi plays pretty loose with their ruals on when they play shit.
And we watched 1 through 4.
Oh
like
my God.
straight through.
I will say I enjoy the first one.
Sure.
But I think for me, the third one is probably the most entertaining.
Which one's the third
This one he's in Vegas.
Yes.
Third one's the most entertaining, has probably the best kills, and it just that one's the one that feels like it full on leans into, we're just gonna be as ridiculous as possible. This is all about the comedy, all about the fun of horror.
Yeah.
As opposed to everything else.
Well, and I want to say, correct me if I'm wrong about the order, but it's 1, 2 in the hood, 3 back to the hood, 4.
I think 3.
Wrong.
I think 3 was before
You think
the
3
hood.
was?
Yeah.
That could be.
Because I think it was. Yeah, I think it's 1, 2, 3 back in the hood.
4 back to the hood.
Yes.
Because by the time they get to Back to the Hood, they're like, "This is a joke."
Yeah,
like,
this is all.
This is a comedy.
They're well into. It's just going straight to
Right.
video. This isn't no theater is
No,
putting this in.
they're like, Snoop Dogg is in this. What are you talking about?
And that's most of the budget.
Yeah. Well spent. Well spent.
Did we give it a number for movie rating?
Oh, I'm going to say 5 because
I agree.
like it's not a good horror movie, but it's one that if you put it on, everyone's going to be like, hell yeah, let's go.
This
Like
is-
it's
yeah.
a blast.
It's
Yes.
something that like you could put on the background and easily just like sit down and enjoy, sit down and
Yeah.
watch at any point in the movie as well.
Of course.
And then in terms of the horror bin, where are we putting it? I don't think I feel like this is like an easy go-to, but I don't think it's worth being on top. I feel like it's definitely not something that's worth being on the bottom. Maybe one of
No.
the sequels
Yes.
more on the bottoms. But I would say like somewhere like maybe dead center.
I would say top of the center though, right?
Okay.
Because I feel like it is a core franchise.
Mhm.
It's not, it's not Phantasm. As much as I love Phantasm. Like, it's not as deep of a cut. I feel like even people who are not horror people get down with some Leprechaun sometimes.
Oh yeah.
So I put it a little higher.
It's definitely got its fan base, I'm
Sure.
sure. I don't know if there's too many Leprechaun cons.
I think there's a bunch
Leprechaun.
of
There
Warwick
they go.
Davis fan people that are just like, this is part of his canon.
Oh yeah. Well, he like Jennifer Aniston. It's like one of those movies where she doesn't outright deny its existence, like
no, she
Jared
just doesn't
Leto
like
with
to talk about it.
like Jared Leto with Urban Legend,
oh yeah, he doesn't.
who's
talk
just
about
like,
that
what
at
is
all.
that?
Yeah, whatever, Legend.
But she does like be like, well, that's my first movie. I'm not really proud of it. I think it's very
Sure.
cringy, which understandably, I mean,
You're
we,
in
we've
Hollywood,
all
you're
had
trying
we've
to
all
pay
had
the
our
bills.
we've all had our first stand up set that we can't
Oh,
watch.
of course. Yeah.
But with Warwick Davis, like I think he grew to love it because
Yeah.
Jennifer Aniston got so big, and then the movie got so popular,
Right.
or not popular, but got more attention.
Yeah, well, it made more money than it probably ever would have because of when they
Yes.
released it because of her popularity. And I think if you're Warwick Davis is really good about embracing any of the characters he plays
Mhm.
because they all have their own different fan bases. And I think that's also part of like knowing that you're a type to a degree. Like there are certain roles I'm going to get picked for all the time and
Yeah.
it's mostly going to be that. And you can be mad about it or you can be like, "Hell yeah.
Just embrace it.
I'm the guy."
Yeah.
Like that's me.
There's a thing on YouTube. I think it's Honest Trailers.
I love honest trailers.
They do. I don't know if they do all the Harry Potter movies or it's just one.
There's one that's
But-
like a super cut.
Oh, okay,
Yes.
maybe it's that. But they go to the starring, and every other starring is Warwick Davis. Helena Bonham Carter, Warwick Davis, Daniel Radcliffe with Warwick Davis. But like you said, he's that guy who just
He's that guy.
he's a good go-to for like creature characters, for
Yeah.
small creature characters.
Small creature characters, but I also feel like anytime a movie comes out that has a small creature character, he has enough of like an established career that he could just call people and be like, "So when do you need me?"
Yeah.
Like I'm not gonna audition.
He's like,
I know you want me.
He's like the Andy Serkis of
Yes.
tiny creatures.
That is a great comparison.
where Andy Serkis is like motion capture. Andy, we
I
need
got
you.
Yeah. What animal is it this time? I got you.
No
Apes
problem.
together strong. Let's go.
Overall, though, I think if you're looking for weirdly a St. Patrick's Day
Oh,
movie, horror
yes.
movie to watch, this is the no-brainer go-to. I think we can both kind of agree, kind of like that middle to top middle tier of the horror bin.
Mm-hmm.
It's maybe not be like the obvious choice, but it's definitely something that if you dig a little bit and you find
find it.
it's worth the watch.
Yeah, and I would say if you've done the Leprechauns already, like if you're trying to do a whole March month of weird Irish horror,
Mhm.
Halloween 3: Season of the Witch is also a great Leprechaun horror movie.
Oh yeah, because of Shamrock.
It's
um,
the Silver Shamrock, and they are leprechauns from Stonehenge. Had a bitch getting it over here. You wouldn't believe it.
Is that
or I guess they're wizards. Whatever.
because I always remember it as witches. I haven't seen Halloween
It's
3 in a
probably
long
it's
time.
Season of the Witch, so one would
Yeah.
assume witches and warlocks, but they are small and Irish. So
And I also do like that it's not, at least with this, before we wrap up, I do like, because we did Imaginary just recently.
ooh, okay.
And they do establish in it that they're like these fey entities.
Yes,
that's
don't fuck
how
with
they
the
explain
fae.
them.
Yeah.
Explain them. That's how they explain them. Explain Imaginary Friends. So I do like the idea of taking fairy creatures and turning them into like more of a twisted fairy creature, twisted fae as a villain and monster, because it's a very different take.
OG fae myths, they are tricksters. Like they are not to be trifled with. And so anytime you get into something like that, like there is precedent for it being scary. So
yeah.
You know.
So I mean, overall, if you're looking for something to watch on St. Patrick's Day, this is definitely the one to go to.
Yeah. You've already watched Boondock Saints, so like choose something different. You know you did.
A little less Norma Reedus, a little more Warwick Davis.
There you go.
And I think that's more rhyming than they did in this first movie.
That is. It's the second movie where the rhyming really comes
yeah.
in.
And then they're like, oh, now we got his voice. We understand.
Right. I'm after me gold. Yeah.
But Paige, thank you so much for being here on this St. Patty's Day episode. You got your camera right here. Let the people know where they can find you, what you got going on.
You can listen to me on Horror Virgin, Romancing the Pod, and Cult Podcast. And if you want to see me do stand-up live, you can follow me on Instagram at Rampage Wesley, or on TikTok, as long as we have TikTok. Good luck.
For however long that is, yeah.
Shrugs.
You guys can also find me on all the things Julian F Comedy. Follow this podcast at Horror Bin on Instagram. At this point, and we'll see what happens. We might not be on TikTok. I don't know. But definitely follow us on Instagram. Make sure to like, share, subscribe, do all the things for YouTube and iTunes. Let's build this horror community up. Let's get that fan base. Not fan base, but we'll get that fan base. Community. There we go. Let's get her that pot of gold that we all know is there. But Paige, thank you again for being on.
Thanks
once
for
again.
having me.
Obviously, we're gonna keep on having you.
Of course.
And then, as we say for every episode, fuck you, Lucky Charms. Bye.
Okay, but now you do have to say that for every episode. Just
Now-
keep going.